We have us a great potential game as the Washington Commanders are traveling to Detroit to face the Detroit Lions. This is your NFC Divisional Round 2025 prediction and preview video. Hit subscribe if you're new. Also hit the like button. Let's start off with the away team. Let's switch some things up right here. The Washington Commanders last week had a walk-off field goal against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they won yet another close game. They beat the New Orleans Saints by 1 point, even though they were leading that game for majority of the game. Once again, close football game, and they defeated the Atlanta Falcons in overtime, another close game with Jaden Daniels. The Washington Commanders, they do something that no other offense has done in the NFL this season. Cliff Kingsbury went back to college when he got fired from being the Arizona Cardinals head coach, and it was a blessing in disguise. He has come over with a brand new type of offense, a two-back system mixed in with a lot of RPO. Jaden Daniels is a phenomenal quarterback. Right now, you can make the case that he's a top 5 quarterback in this league with how he is playing right now. He has elevated this team up to the next level. When I look at the Washington Commanders, you have the type of offense that can give the Detroit Lions defense a lot of problems. The Detroit Lions, they have had a solid defense all season long, even without Aiden Hutchinson, especially against the run game. The secondary, not so much, but I'll touch on that when I talk about the Detroit Lions. But it's one component that has given the Detroit Lions a lot of problems this season on the ground. It's not the running back position. It's not the wide receivers running those jet sweeps. It's the quarterback position. Josh Allen had a lot of success, and he defeated the Detroit Lions. A major part of that was because of his legs in that Buffalo Bills game. And not only did he have a good day, also did Anthony Richardson. So now look at Jaden Daniels. He has the ability to go out there and single-handedly take this game over with his legs. And we have seen this as the season has progressed. Early on this season, Jaden Daniels was trying to operate from inside the pocket. And the Washington Commanders, they don't have the best offensive line to go out there and let you sit through your progressions. But when you're allowing Jaden Daniels to go out there and use his legs outside the pocket, that's when you see this offense completely open up. And that's what you have seen over the last few weeks, and especially in the back half of this season. When I go back to that Steelers game, Jaden Daniels was so close to leading that team to defeating the Steelers on a possible game-winning drive. And we all know what happened in that matchup. Johnny Newton jumped off sides. They lost that matchup by a point. Since then, even in the games that they lost after that, you have seen Jaden Daniels be more aggressive with throwing the football deep down the field, like how he was against the Cincinnati Bengals earlier in the season. But he's also using his legs more, and he will run in between the tackles. This is what you have to do against the Detroit Lions. Use that RPO. Make those linebackers hesitate at the line of scrimmage. That is why it's so hard to defend this offense. You have Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler both in the backfield. Austin Eckler is one of those running backs that can come out the backfield and he can be a legitimate wide receiver. When you talk about dual threat running backs, that is what Austin Eckler is. He can run in between the tackles. That's not his strong suit, but he can do it. But he's more so known to go out there and beat linebackers off the line of scrimmage and test out safeties also down the field. And you have Brian Robinson Jr., who can also catch the football out of the backfield. Not to the same extent of Austin Eckler, but he's excellent at running the ball in between the tackles. Keep the Detroit Lions defense off balance. And then you can gain leverage. When I look at the secondary with the Detroit Lions, like I mentioned before, this is not their strong suit. They have struggled in the past against top wide receivers like Justin Jefferson. They've had good moments in short yardage situations in terms of the red zone. They have a top red zone defense, but a lot of that is because it's short yardage situations. When you are talking about 50 yards out, you could take those deep bombs down the field. And the Detroit Lions secondary, they have been prone to pass interference penalties. So if it's third and deep and you have to go out there and get a cheap play, get Terry McLaurin one-on-one, move him around. And you could possibly get a cheap penalty on the Detroit Lions or just get a major play with Terry McLaurin. And speaking of Terry McLaurin, he was phenomenal last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He has been the go-to wide receiver for Jaden Daniels. And last week, he had 7 catches, 1 receiving touchdown, and 89 receiving yards. But it's more than just Terry McLaurin. Zach Ertz had a phenomenal game against the Atlanta Falcons. And this is why you have to bring in those veterans. This is a man that's a Super Bowl champion. He's made a lot of deep playoff runs with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he was a very good tight end for the Arizona Cardinals a few years ago. He knows the soft spots in zone. When I look at the defense for the Detroit Lions, they will go out there and they will blitz. You have to have smart players on this team that know how to go out there and use their technique and use their body. Once again, let's go back to that Steelers matchup. He delivered the football to Zach Ertz. He was just a couple inches away from converting on 4th down. It's a bad play because it didn't work out, but at the same time, that's that veteran presence. He was just a couple of inches away from converting that 4th down and possibly walking off with a game-winning field goal or touchdown against the Steelers. This is what you call elevating the talent around you with veteranship and learning from your mistakes. And this is what the Washington Commanders have done with Jaden Daniels. You have Zacchaeus, who has also been a very good wide receiver. Terry McLaurin did not do much against the Atlanta Falcons, but Zacchaeus went out there and he was their main wide receiver, alongside Zach Ertz being their main tight end target. So you have pieces all around Jaden Daniels, and he's elevating these guys every single time that he steps up on the field. The only thing that would concern me is the inconsistent play calling with Cliff Kingsbury. We've seen this in the past, but over the last 5 weeks, he's been very consistent with his play calling. Continue to use those 2 running backs, force the Detroit Lions to either pick the pass or pick the run. That's why it's called a run-pass option. And this run-pass option is so deadly with the Washington Commanders because they use those 2 running backs. They'll use them in motion. With most quarterbacks in the league, they don't have the speed that Jaden Daniels has. So he could take off with the football too. We're talking about 3 possible runners with Eckler, Brian Robinson Jr., Jaden Daniels, and you have Terry McLaurin to worry about on the back end, and also with Zach Ertz. This is a complete and open offense, and we've seen what other quarterbacks have been able to do against this defense in the past when they have that mobility. I think that this is going to be a shootout game for both teams, but I really like Jaden Daniels in this matchup, especially with him coming off a great game against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But you have to start off hot, because I don't trust the defense right now with the Washington Commanders against the run. Now, let's talk about the defense for the Washington Commanders. Last week, it was a lot of up and down moments. Baker Mayfield had a very good day, but it came down to that fumble. And when I look at this situation for the Commanders, you have to force Jared Goff off his spot. Jared Goff did have a bad game against the Houston Texans this year. They still won that football game, and he threw 5 interceptions in that matchup. Not every interception was on him. But if you go out there and you can force him to throw 2 or 3 interceptions or just 2 interceptions on the day, hell, even 1, take advantage of that. Go out there and be aggressive. And this is what Dan Quinn has done a great job of this season. In the past, we've seen the Washington Commanders with other coaches, they'll play safe because they were defensive head coaches. We've seen this with Ron Rivera. I look at Dan Quinn. He trusts his offense. He trusts his franchise quarterback. And you can still have that trust in your defense, but go for it on 4th down. You're going against a Dan Campbell coach team. This team is full of psychopaths in terms of going out there and not doing normal things. They will go for it on 4th and 8 on their own 20. And they have done this before. They've done this against the Green Bay Packers. They've done this against the Minnesota Vikings. They are a reckless team, but it always works out into their favor because they're all-star coaching staff. And I look at the Washington Commanders. You also have an all-star coaching staff with the coaches that you have. But you have to go out there and put that pressure on Jared Goff. This is going to be tough because this is the best offensive line in the league, in my opinion. I know the Philadelphia Eagles, they have a great offensive line. I'm talking about a complete unit from tackle to tackle. Jared Goff barely gets touched. But when you can put that pressure on him, he's not the same quarterback. But you have to be consistent with that pressure. And I look at Dan Quinn, the one thing all of his defenses have had in common over the last few years since he has been in this league with the Seattle Seahawks defensive coordinator, Dallas Cowboys his last stop, and even when he was the Atlanta Falcons head coach, they could put pressure on the quarterback. So when I look at those 2 interior defensive linemen, Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, go out there and be major forces against the run because the Russian defense with the Washington Commanders, they're suspect. They're in the bottom of the league. Over the last 4 weeks of the regular season, they did play better, but they have to be a main constant in this game to stop David Montgomery. And yes, David Montgomery will play in this matchup. He has been a full participant, not in just 1, but in 2 practices and back-to-back days. And they have Jahmyr Gibbs. So when I look at those 2 defensive tackles, you have to put those guys on the field and let them wreck shop. And the same with Johnny Newton. I look at Dorrance Armstrong, very good pass rusher. How will he look against the run game? I look at Frankie Louvu. This is a man that has said in the past he wants to be where the football is at. This is a perfect linebacker to have against a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs. But Jahmyr Gibbs is so fast, I would not leave the linebackers in one-on-one coverage with those running backs. Trust me, I would not. And I look at a guy like David Montgomery. He may not have the speed of Jahmyr Gibbs, but he can break tackles and he can get you 50 yards just like that. Look at what he did against the Seattle Seahawks many months ago, Monday Night Football. It was a regular screen that should have only went for 8 yards. The man broke 2 to 3 tackles and it went for 50+ yards. You have to make your tackles in space. And I also look at another good pass rusher that they have with this team, and he's led this team in sacks this year, Dante Fowler. Can he do enough to come off the edge and put a lot of pressure on Jared Goff? And speaking of veterans, I talked about Zach Ertz and having his veteranship. You have Bobby Wagner, Super Bowl champion. He's been in the playoffs many times before. Still one of the best interior linebackers to have in settings like this in the playoffs, especially against the run. He has to be excellent in this game. And I look at the secondary. They have a top passing defense, but you're going against an open offense of the Detroit Lions. You have to worry about so many moving parts with Tim Patrick, Sam Laporta, St. Brown, Jameson Williams. That's the guy that I worry about the most with the Detroit Lions. I know that St. Brown's a true number one. Jameson Williams is one play away from hitting his head on the goalpost. He's one of the best deep threats in the league this season. And I'm happy to see him flourish this year because he's dealt with injuries in the past. He's dealt with some suspensions, but now he has his head on straight. This man's a top deep threat target. Be on lookout for him. And I look at Marshawn Lattimore. Last week did not have the best week against Mike Evans, but when he has been able to play with the Commanders, and I understand it's only been 2 games so far, one in the regular season, one in the postseason, he has looked okay. Last week, not so much because the coaching staff put him in one-on-one situations with Mike Evans. I would not put him in one-on-one situations with Jameson Williams. I want you guys to realize what Jameson Williams did in week 1 against the Los Angeles Rams. He had a major touchdown, and it was pass interference on that play from Tre'Davious White. That's elite speed that I'm talking about, and that can cost you a lot in this matchup. But I like Mike Sainristil, the rookie, at the nickel cornerback position. I like Benjamin also at his respective cornerback position. They have solid players in that secondary, and they have a top secondary for a reason. This should be a fun game for the Washington Commanders, and no one expected for this team to be in this situation at the beginning point of the season. Now let's talk about Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. One of the best teams all season long. This is why they have the first seed, and this is why they're coming off a bye week right now. But like I mentioned, they're a bunch of psychopaths in a good way, because Dan Campbell came out many years ago. He said, I'm going to bite the kneecaps off. You guys already know what I'm about to say for the key to victory in this game. Ben Johnson is a terrific offensive coordinator. He's going to be a head coach one day, the same with Cliff Kingsbury. But when I look at the offense for the Detroit Lions, you have been missing David Montgomery over the last couple of months, dealing with a knee injury, but it was not serious enough for him to go out there and have knee surgery. And you have Jahmyr Gibbs, and you have Craig Reynolds, who was a solid fill-in for David Montgomery. Run the football in this game and beat the Washington Commanders with time of possession. You want a completely open offense. You don't want to go out there where you're playing from behind. That's a mistake that happened against the Buffalo Bills. They were playing from behind damn near the entire game. And they tried to march their way back into it. They went with the onside kick in the fourth quarter. It just didn't work out for them. You don't want to play from behind too much in this game. Now, I'm not saying that they can't go out there and they can't come from behind, because they have done this against the Houston Texans. But you want to run the football as much as possible with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. You want to slice and dice this defense of the Washington Commanders. This is going to be a straight out fight. And when I look at the Detroit Lions, they should be lucky that they have the head coach that they have right now. Because when I look at the rushing defense of the Commanders, they can be solid at times, but more times than not, you can beat them up from the outside with Jahmyr Gibbs. And Jahmyr Gibbs is a home run hitter. He's the second best home run hitter on this team next to Jameson Williams. You get the football into his hands, he could take off with it. And having David Montgomery back for this matchup is going to be a major plus for the Detroit Lions. I look at Jared Goff. As long as the offensive line is going to be able to hold up for him, he's going to hit the targets. He's going to throw guys open like Jameson Williams. He's going to throw open St. Brown, and the same with Sam Laporta. It's going to be very interesting to see who the top wide receiver is going to be in this matchup, because there's been certain games to where Tim Patrick goes out there, he has a great game, like how he had against the Green Bay Packers and how he had against the Buffalo Bills. And then next games, you'll look at St. Brown and say, hey, he's a true number one. And based off of talent, St. Brown is the best wide receiver with this team. But you have so many weapons at your disposal. You have 3 true number one wide receivers in this system with the Lions playing alongside each other. Jameson Williams is a first-round pick for a reason a couple of years ago. Test them out deep down the field and get Sam Laporta involved, especially in short yardage situations. In the red zone situations, that should be the guy that you should go to. And when I look at the Detroit Lions, they have been playing complete football all season long. Even when they've been dealing with their injuries on the defensive side of the ball and on the offensive side of the ball, they complement each other very well. They play complementary defense and they play complementary offense. And be on lookout for a bunch of weird plays coming from Ben Johnson. This is the same team this season that had Penei Sewell run with the football against the Chicago Bears. This is the same team this season that had offensive linemen running wide receiver routes against the Dallas Cowboys. Keep this team off balance and come out with some trick plays. I would not be surprised if Dan Skipper goes out there, he checks into the game, they motion him out, and he gets the receiving touchdown in this matchup. And that's no disrespect to the Washington Commanders. I'm saying this because you have so many targets to worry about. They will put in one of those offensive linemen, and the next thing that you know, this guy walks away with a receiving touchdown, or they can just run the football with an offensive lineman too. We've seen that in the past from other teams. I don't expect for that to happen, but I do expect for a bunch of weird plays to happen because when you look at it from this standpoint, they had a bye week. They've had an entire week to scout the Washington Commanders and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I look at Dan Campbell off a bye week. He's become one of the best coaches to have off a bye week, and the same with Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. Now let's talk about Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn has done a phenomenal job this year. He's a top defensive coordinator this season. I know that some people may look at him and say the pass defense isn't that good. What is he doing? For one, you have missed your big interior defensive lineman, well, your big defensive lineman in general, pardon me, and Aiden Hutchinson. He got injured against the Dallas Cowboys. They went out there and they made a major trade to bring in Zadarius Smith. Zadarius Smith has been a very good pass rusher with this team. And when I look at the Detroit Lions defense, they will give up big plays, yes. But look at what happened against the Minnesota Vikings. They were amazing in the red zone. And this is what it takes to win games like this and to win in the NFL playoffs and to win the Super Bowl. You can give up those big plays. What does it matter if the team's always taking 3 points and your offense is giving you 14 points on the back end? And now the game is 3-14. That's what they did with the Minnesota Vikings. They kept them off target. They kept Sam Darnold under duress, and they made sure that he did not have enough time in the pocket to set up for those deep throws and those timing routes with those wide receivers. Now, this is a bit different. Sam Darnold is a talented quarterback. You're going against Jaden Daniels right here. Jaden Daniels is a phenomenal player. But when I look at Aaron Glenn, he had a lot of nice concepts against the Buffalo Bills. The players couldn't execute. And now you have Alex back at the linebacker position. He's going to help settle everything down. He was a top player in that game against the Minnesota Vikings. Forget just defensive player, just a top player in general on the offensive side and the defensive side of the ball because he was able to make those tackles in space. He was able to go out there and stop the run and put that pressure on Sam Darnold. You're going to have a rover on your team. You're going to have a top dog on your defense to stick with Jaden Daniels and to slow down that run game. And Alex is one of those guys to have. I'm not saying that he's a top 5 linebacker to have in this league, but he's a top linebacker with this team, and he's going to be essential in this matchup. You need those linebackers to step up in this game because those linebackers, if they hesitate too much on a run-pass option, that can go for a major play with Jaden Daniels using his legs and also with those running backs coming out of the backfield. So the linebackers will dictate this game, and also the same with Aaron Glenn. When I look at the secondary, I'm really not trying to disrespect the players with the Detroit Lions. I like the players that they have in their secondary. Kirby Joseph is one of the best safeties to have. The man had 9 interceptions this season. And Brian Branch, that's a great player. That's an all-pro type of player to have in your secondary. But when I look at the rest of the cornerbacks that you have, Terrion Arnold has given up a lot of big plays this season. He's also been solid. He's a rookie. Give him time. But you don't get that excuse in the playoffs. I would not put him on Terry McLaurin. I would play more so of a zone coverage on the back end, and I'll be careful with the man coverage that you would play in this matchup if you are the Detroit Lions. On the flip side, we've seen this team go out there and blitz a lot since Aiden Hutchinson has went down, and rightfully so. They want to keep their quarterback, the opposing quarterback that they're going against, under duress the entire game. Sam Darnold went blind against the blitz, not once but twice this season. Jordan Love went blind against the blitz, not once but twice this season. Jaden Daniels is one of the best quarterbacks against the blitz this year. Now, I will say this. Aaron Glenn, his blitz is a little bit different because he will rotate those safeties over, and Kirby Joseph, and the same with Brian Branch. This is why it's so phenomenal to have guys in the back end that could flip around and they can be versatile. And I'm talking about Brian Branch here. He's just an incredible player to have in the secondary. You want to confuse Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels has seen a lot so far in his career. He played a lot of snaps in college, Arizona State, then he transferred to LSU. And you look at him right now, he's went against a lot of top defenses this year. But he's went against the Cincinnati Bengals. They sent in an all-out blitz. Look at what he was able to do. Set up into shots, set up into his throws, threw the football deep down the field. This is why you want to confuse him at the line of scrimmage. Bluff blitzes. Go out there. Don't sell out to just a pass or to the run. Switch things up. And this is one thing that Aaron Glenn has been great at this season with the different type of blitzes that he was seeing. Not every blitz that he sends is a man blitz. You can send some zone blitz with some guys on the back end paying attention to Jaden Daniels. And I believe that that's the way to go. When you play man coverage against a scrambling quarterback, you're testing your fate and you're testing your luck. And I'm going to tell you why. When you're playing man coverage, you're worried about your man. That's what coaches tell you to do. Worry about your wide receiver. You can't be looking in the backfield. When you play zone coverage, everyone is facing the quarterback. They're sitting in their zones. This is why you watch film. This is why you practice this in scrimmages. You're sitting in your zone. So if it's a Tampa 2 defense, you cover everything underneath 15 yards and out. That's what you do. When you're playing man, you have to cover the running back that's coming across. You have to cover the tight end that's coming on the back end. You have to cover the wide receiver on the out route. And you're so focused about your man, you're not worried about everything else that's going on behind you. So it could be complete chaos behind you. That is why Josh Allen had those big plays. This is why other scrambling quarterbacks this season against the Detroit Lions have had those big time plays. Their first loss in the regular season came against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Baker Mayfield had a lot of success on the ground because the defenders had their back turned. You can run man coverage in this game, yes, but put up a spy. The Atlanta Falcons did not put up a spy. And Jaden Daniels killed him with his legs. You don't want a stat line to where Jaden Daniels has 87 rushing yards, Austin Eckler has 64 rushing yards, and a guy in Brian Robinson Jr. possibly has 54 rushing yards. That could give you a lot of problems because at that point in time, they're using time possession against you. I like both teams in this matchup. I don't expect for either team to go out there and get blown out. This is going to be a close football game. When I look at the Detroit Lions, they're coming off that bye week. You look at the Washington Commanders, they're playing like a veteran team right now, and rightfully so. Two amazing coaching staffs. This is my most look forward to game this postseason so far. This is a great matchup in my opinion. Personally, this is my game of the week, game of the weekend. With all that being said, I do have the Detroit Lions winning this game. But I believe the Detroit Lions will win this game with walk-off field goal fashion. I have the Detroit Lions winning this game 38-35. But let me know in the comment section below, who do you have winning this game? The Washington Commanders or the Detroit Lions? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, I want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.